We are very lucky to have with us live in the studios this morning, Susan Avila-Smith. Susan Avila-Smith is founder and director of VetWow, Veteran Women Organizing Women, the nation's oldest support system for survivors of military sexual trauma, also known as MST. She has participated as an active member of the veterans community since 1995, specializing in development of VA benefit claims for victims of MST. She herself is a veteran and survivor of military sexual trauma and has helped nearly 5,000 male and female clients at various stages of recovery from similar incidents to obtain medical benefits, legal and personal counseling, and other essential services. Susan, thank you very much for coming and spending time with us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
So start out, tell us a little bit more about VetWow.
Well, it started in Seattle at the VA. We had the first women's trauma recovery support group there ever. And that was about a month after I was discharged from the military. And we all found that none of us, because of our PTSD, could fill out the paperwork to get our benefits that we were due because of our PTSD. So we got together and figured out a way that we could fill out each other's paperwork, which was very simple. And then I realized that there was nobody to really do that for anyone else. So we began kind of as a group starting to fill out paperwork, explain how the process works, how VA, what their rules and regulations are so that you could understand going through the process. And most people kind of fell by the wayside and kind of left me holding the bag. So I've been doing this since 1996, kind of 24/7, out of pocket, all volunteer. Occasionally people will step in and help, but it's such a rough topic that they usually can't stay long.
It is amazing the work you're doing and doing this out of pocket. Is there ways that people can make donations to your organization?
We have a sister charity called Pack Parachute Charity. Right now, it's kind of offline, but it is a nonprofit, and we can accept donations through that. Typically, the donations will go directly to a service member who needs help. For example, somebody may be raped in North Carolina, and their mother lives in Texas, and she needs to fly out. So we would give the money to the mother to go and help advocate for their son or daughter. And we would kind of be behind the scenes on the telephone telling them, this is what you need to do next, these are the steps, and here's the ultimate goal.
All right. So talk about the numbers. How many people are we talking about that are being sexually assaulted in the military?
We're talking roughly a little over 50 a day, men and women. Probably more men than women in the big picture. There's a vast number of men in the population and a very small percentage, and a smaller number of women with a larger percentage. But overall, the total numbers, men experience this more than women. Typically something like a gang rape, shower hazing kind of situation. Drill sergeants, recruiters. It's a big problem. And right now there are services for women, and they're very scarce, but there's really nothing for men.
So, and you personally have gone through this as well. What describe for people what the process is after having endured a sexual assault?
Well, basically, you have to go to your chain of command, and the chain of command is sort of God, if you will. They have complete control over what's done, what happens to you, what happens to the perpetrator, what happens to the paperwork. And I saw all of the black and white rules of the military being violated at that time. And it scared me because I thought, oh, yeah, this 24-year-old guy who doesn't know what he's doing has decided to, buck the rules and just this took on a life of its own. He spent hours and hours trying to cover this up. And when I got out, I realized that they were trying to push me to the limits of suicide. And if they're doing that to me, of course they're doing that to everybody else. That's the easiest, cleanest way for them to deal with it. So I just seemed odd that they would spend that much time and that much energy covering it up rather than dealing with the problem, because it would be so much simpler.
And this was your commander that was
Yes.
doing this? So he just didn't, and he didn't pass the info on to anyone?
No, he didn't have to. It's his job. He's worried about his job. He's not worried about me.
What's the legal, is a legal structure within the military to deal with this? Was he just ignoring the laws, military law?
Yes, he was. He was doing what he felt was right. And that is within his jurisdiction to do that. There is the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. There is Article 15s and other ways of punishing people. But even so, when you look at maybe 3,000 service members, maybe 150 will get some kind of punishment, and that may be $125 fine or picking up garbage for 2 weeks or something like that. Very few end up doing time for something like this. Only if it's in the media, and typically if it's done against an officer will they get involved.
So yesterday, Seattle Times ran an editorial talking about sexual trauma. I don't know if you had a chance to see that, and it's in tandem with the fact that a new movie is out, The Invisible War, that you helped with, and I believe are in the film as well, and you spoke last night to the audience afterwards. But a lot of the commenters to the article were basically saying that there are already, in addition to the UCMJ, there are already all these programs within the military for victims of sexual trauma that they can turn to, and that if your commander isn't receptive, that you can go to the chaplain. There's these other venues for you.
Right.
What's the truth to that?
I got a call from someone in the from someone at McCord Air Force Base, and the chaplain asked her, "Well, aren't you married?" And she said, "Well, yeah." And he goes, "Well, the guy just stuck his dick in you. It's not like you lost your virginity or anything." So these are the kinds of support that we find, and it's really difficult. There's SARC and SAPRO. And these people can be a sexual assault response coordinator. They can be the spouse of a commander. So is the spouse of a commander going to say, "Hey, you had a rape in your unit," and then risk their life and their home and you know, money and career? No, they're not going to turn their husband in. So they're going to do everything they can. And SARC and SAPRO has no power. They can strongly suggest that the military does something. They are not in the chain of command. They have no reason to change anything because they are outside the command structure. And that was kind of put in as smoke and mirrors. So, oh, we have this, you know, this is great. We're working on it. We've got this program. It's nothing. It's like zero tolerance. Saying zero tolerance when somebody's coming at you with a gun is not going to prevent rape. Holding a poster up saying, "Ask her when she's sober," is not going to prevent rape. It just doesn't. And they're looking at ways of preventing rape. They're not looking at prosecuting. They're not looking at having a sex offender registry, because none of these people cross from military to civilian and have a sex offender case registry. They're not required. And Congress mandated this in 1982, and there's been nothing done, nothing to ensure that this happens. So you've got people coming back, you know, so if you think that, oh, well, this just happens in the military, these people are coming back, going troops to teachers, using their military training for something that they can use to get their teacher credentialing and get right into your elementary schools with your kids. So they could be a convicted pedophile in the military, and they're out, and they're with your kids. So think again, you know, this is everybody's problem. I
know there's currently been a big push for getting military people into teaching positions. So I believe I read on your website that 8% of sexual assault cases are prosecuted in the military and only 2% result in convictions.
That sounds about right. It's a 65 to 85% in the civilian world that result in convictions of civilian rape. So the military is way low, just so far out of the ballpark where the civilian world's concerned if you're going to judge these kind of equally for the same crimes.
Because, again, that was another repeated supposed factoid from the comments in the Times article yesterday that, oh, no, the military, the numbers there pretty much reflect what is happening in the civilian world.
Well, no. I mean, there's more rapes and there's less prosecution, and there's no motivation for anybody to prosecute.
And in fact, it sounded like from, again, watching The Invisible War, which is starting this week. It started last night and showing tonight and through the rest of the week. And you are, in fact, speaking after tonight's 6:30 showing, that the military almost has a high percentage of people coming in that are rapists, and that the situation there actually protects these people. It's a perfect environment
for
them.
For rapists, yes, it is. They've lowered the bar to get more people into the military. They've allowed gang members who need a kill to join the gang. So that means that we've lost some of our service members over in Iraq due to this. But again, they've lowered the bar, and they're allowing people who have been convicted of a sexual offense to enter the military. And the thing is, you know, somebody comes in and rapes, and then they have to pick up trash for 2 days because of it. Now they know what they can get away with and what's going to happen next time. And they're going to do it again, because these people are not, you know, it's not a one-time thing. These are serial perpetrators. And just like Jeffrey Dahmer, some of the other serial killers were in the military. And this is where they got their training. You know, they were able to get away with it. And it just kind of self-perpetuates. It's like it's no big deal to people. That's how they act. You know, there are good people in the military. There are good people at the VA, but there's not enough. There's not enough.
And again, from seeing the examples in The Invisible War, it's very apparent that a lot of these people came forward within the military, tried to have this addressed, and were turned away. So clearly, there has to be more than just those people in the command line and the decision process that are aware of what's going on and looking the other way. Is that true?
That's the whole thing. You know, if you ask somebody what was worse, the rape or the way your command treated you, more than likely they'll say it was the way their command treated them. They'd rather be gang raped again than to have to go through what happened to them in the command. And that's pretty sad. You know, that's a horrible way to look at it.
So what changes, what are you trying to institute, both yourself and your organization, to deal with this?
Well, my organization still focuses on the survivors, the victims and the survivors, and tries to get them benefits. It's something that's very tangible. The community at large for MST is trying to get something called the STOP Act passed through congressional leaders. And that would remove the process of judge, jury, and decision makers from the chain of command and put it to an outside source until the military has something that works, that they show us can work. So that's the first thing, is to remove it from the hands of people making these decisions. The other thing is to get appropriate care. VA doesn't have the funding. You know, there's 13% of people using the VA system. That means 87%, if they would just enroll, would bring 87% more dollars into the VA. And people could be seen more than once a month. And if somebody's suicidal, and most everyone in the film said that they were, and most of my clients have said that they are, you need to be seen more than once a month for medication and for follow-up. So, we would like to see more dollars into the VA. We'd like to see better care for people within the military services, rather than saying, oh, well, stamp, you're good to go. You can go back, be deployed. Here's some Prozac. Good luck with your life. We're sending people in harm's way out there, and they are not prepared in any way, shape, or form to keep their buddies alive, and that's their job out there.
Another aspect that the Invisible War made clear was a lot of these survivors are, in addition to the rape, are physically battered by their rapists, and just looking for medical help there. The one woman who had her jaw broken and couldn't get the VA to pay for that. It was
right.
Just,
the surgery was going to be way too expensive. And luckily, after the first showing at Sundance, a couple stood up in the audience and offered to pay for her surgery. And she's just recently given birth to another child. So when she's ready to go in, she will be doing that. But it shouldn't be that the community is taking care of this. I'm taking care of this, on my side. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of other people trying to step up to the plate to help our veterans. And that's the VA's job. They should be able to figure this out. Yeah, there's a lot of burnout. This is a tough topic. But, Seattle VA has been looking for people for years to come into their mental health clinic and help. And they can't. There's not enough providers.
I believe I've also seen on your website, vetwow.org? vetwow.com, that you recommend that people shouldn't even be trying to navigate a lot of this VA paperwork without the help of someone trained like yourself.
Right. Most veteran service officers have between 1 and 14 hours of training. DAV is the only service organization of disabled American veterans that requires 1 hour yearly of training. So you could be a service officer for 30 years on 1 hour of total time training. MST falls outside of every single claim, illness and injury within the VA system. So it allows for alternative evidence for the evidence part of a claim. You need 3 things to win. You need a diagnosis of what you're filing for. You need a link to service, which is called a nexus, which means that if you have nothing in your medical file from the service, that you need a doctor's opinion saying that more likely than not, 51% or more, that your condition is caused by service, and you need evidence. So if you have a TBI, traumatic brain injury, you need to show that that happened. If you've been raped, you don't necessarily need to show it, but you have to fill out a form that has markers. And these 14 markers depict situations that people who have experienced trauma will develop. So if they go AWOL, if they start drinking, if they're using prescription pills, if they're stopping eating, if they break up with primary relationship, these are the kinds of things that they look at. So VA Medical Center, they don't know about this because it's not their jurisdiction. And VA Regional Office is not necessarily trained for these specific claims. There used to be a team specifically for these, but they've said, oh, there's so many, we're just going to split them across the board. So these claims are being denied even though they have everything in there because the people aren't trained properly. So the other thing is that if you have military sexual trauma and you walk into a VA facility, you can be seen and should be seen immediately. But the guy at the front desk in enrollment doesn't know that. So the gatekeepers are saying, oh, no, you can't come in. You have to be service connected, which can take, from 1 to 25 years or more, because the system is backlogged now by nearly 1 million claims. So you have to go in a side door and say, I have MST, I need to be seen. And if you are able to do that and we can help you do that, then you should be seen the same day. So learning the rules, knowing what you need to do, it's really difficult because for men, it's like they see the hat, you were in the Tet Offensive, so was I, this is really great. They can have some camaraderie about it. I can't walk up to somebody, slap them on the back and say, hey, I was raped at Darnell Hospital, Fort Hood, Texas. What about you? It's just not socially acceptable. And, it's not really a good way to start a conversation. So that's where social media is coming in really handy to be able to get this information out and to help people walk through this process, because you can't do it by yourself. The very illness of post-traumatic stress disorder prevents you from being able to do this by yourself.
So another statistic, I believe, that was in the film The Invisible War, that 80% of those who are sexually assaulted in the military don't report it. Are those people still eligible for help from the VA? Is that something you can help with?
Yes, they are. My clients go back to World War II. It used to be that if you were pregnant in the military, they would discharge you. So there's a lot of women who were raped by their drill sergeants in World War II, and because you were pregnant, then you lost your job and you were shipped home. But the parents didn't want them because they weren't married, and then, they have a life. They don't even know how many husbands they've had, or they've been homeless. And there's patterns even now. Women become homeless. They get involved in using something. 85% use drugs, alcohol, food, anything to stop the pain. And they finally learned after all these years that if they give them the proper prescriptions, that they won't be using, because the prescriptions work. They work better than drugs and alcohol. So
what impact has this film, The Invisible War, had on the work you're doing?
It's bringing a little more people in. It's definitely gotten national attention. I've never seen the Department of Defense show up on primetime television and talk about this. They were scared 2 days before Leon Panetta was on primetime TV talking about how they're going to be making changes to the way that they handle sexual assault in the military. So there are some changes. People are starting the dialogue. Sexual assault is a crime. It's not something you should be ashamed of. You have to think of, if somebody shot you, would you be embarrassed to talk about it? It's not the victim's fault. And most of the time it's like, well, what were you wearing? Oh, I was wearing the uniform of the military, It's not, they don't design those to be seductive. We need to get this dialogue started so that people talk about it as a crime, see it, that it's going to be involved in our community, and talk to our congressional representatives and tell them something needs to be done. Something needs to change. And hopefully the Invisible War will be the catalyst to get this conversation started.
So if you were suddenly put in charge of redoing the military or our laws and supporting organizations, what changes would you implement?
Immediately remove the jurisdiction away from the chain of command into a structure that actually works, that supports the victim, gives them the help they need, and punishes the perpetrator and labels them for life as a sex offender. It's an easy, to me it seems pretty obvious. To people who can't see the bigger picture, that still should be obvious. And I think just starting there, helping people deal with this, it's lifelong. Out of the 5,000 people that I've helped, I have one working full time. That means the rest are falling, the burden to the taxpayers because they can't work. They can't function. And if you look at the movie, it's like, it's not only the veteran, it's their family. The family's affected. They don't know if their wife's going to commit suicide tonight or tomorrow or the next day. The kids are experiencing transgenerational PTSD. They're going to need care. They're probably going to have a hard time as an adult. this really impacts society more than people really recognize.
So for people listening, what support or help could you use from them?
Talk about this. Talk to people. Don't be afraid to tell men that, men get military sexual trauma. They shouldn't be ashamed of it. They can get help. They need to talk to their representatives. They need to step up to the plate like the rest of us and help veterans. If that means delivering pizza to, the medical center in Seattle, just to let veterans know that somebody's thinking of them, that's okay. We all can't work 24/7 in the trenches like me. I understand that. But we sure could use a lot more help and support. Supporting the other organizations, SWAN, the Service Women's Action Network in New York City, they're doing a lot of the policy changes and things that need to happen. Everybody kind of has their own niche. The War Experience Project out of Kennewick, they're painting on uniforms as a way of doing therapy without talking. So, holding an exposition or finding a place for them to show this, asking for a screening of the invisible war for the community at large. There's so many ways to help. It's not only money. If you're a therapist, volunteer an hour a month. That would be great.
Do you have people who help you, a staff or anything of volunteers?
No, I have no staff. I wish I had a staff. It's really hard because the people who want to help are the ones that have post-traumatic stress disorder, and they just, the illness prevents them from being able to work.
And do you do trainings, or is it all one-on-one with the people you work with?
I would like to do trainings one-on-one. It seems at this point in my career that I need to be reaching out to larger audiences, and that the film is really helping with that. I would like to do trainings, both for VA claims, for benefits, for helping the community understand what a veteran really needs, how they respond. And, I'm willing to go talk to people who can make a change.
And just about a minute left. If you could give a message to those people who have been sexually assaulted in the military who haven't gotten help yet, what would that be?
A lot of people tend to try to forget this, and they're not really sure. They say there's the flight or fight response, but there's also the freeze response. And people think that because they were frozen at the time they were sexually assaulted, it meant that it was okay, but it's not. So, if you think that this has happened or it's bothering you, or you don't know it's bothering you, you can kind of look to see if some of your behaviors are not quite right. Are you sleeping during the daytime and then looking at the perimeter at night, making sure the doors are locked and the windows are closed? Are you throwing dirty dishes out rather than washing them because they're too overwhelming? It's just too overwhelming. Are you not leaving the house and going shopping late at night because there's no one there? There's a huge community on Facebook. There's a huge community in social media, and you can kind of enter that at the speed that you feel comfortable with.
Well, with that, we're unfortunately out of time. I want to thank you very much for coming and spending time with us this morning.
Thank you.